What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the PFF NFL show. Here to talk a little bit of quarterbacks with you. And this is a fun episode because we're recording this on a Tuesday. And normally, I'll talk to Seth, who I'll bring in here in a second. And we go, what quarterbacks do you want to talk about? And normally, it's the Sunday quarterbacks, right? Something happened on Sunday. We're going to talk about the Sunday. The Monday night doubleheader, the thrilling scheduling that the NFL does, gave us the opportunity to talk about three quarterbacks here in Josh Allen, Jayden Daniels, and Trevor Lawrence. So we're giving you guys a little bit of an instant reaction to our thoughts here for the quarterback showcase show. Seth, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good. How do you feel about a Monday doubleheader? How does that work for you?
I go back and forth because before the games kicked off, I hated it. Thought it was asinine. Stupid, terrible idea. Why are we doing this? And then, I watch most of the first game, and then I get to watch the second game until 11:30. Not bad. It wasn't too late. We're not starting at 9:30, because I think that's the part that people complain about, right? They go, all right, well, if you're going to start one at 7 Eastern, then you got to start the other one at 9:30 so I can watch all of both. But then do you really want to be up past midnight watching the game? I don't know if you do. I don't know if you want to bring the Pac-12 After Dark RIP feeling to the NFL. You're shaking your head vehemently no, that you don't. So how do you feel about the Monday night doubleheader? Because we got another one next week.
We do. I think we got lucky this week because by the time the second game started, the first game was already pretty much over.
That's very true. That's very true.
I think that helped out. No, I mean, I sit in a position of privilege because I work in football. So I understand my privilege here, but I do not. I wish all games, even during the week, started at 1 p.m. To be honest, I can't have. I don't like that I can't. Oftentimes these primetime games, Mondays I'm okay, but Thursdays and Sundays I'm working through the night. Well, not through the night, but up until the end of the game and a little past the game, so I have to be at my desk and watching. So that is my privilege. I understand it, but if that game could start 2 hours earlier, I would love that.
That's a nightly routine guy, and you know what? When you mess up the nightly routine, the next day just it starts off on the wrong foot, and we've all been there. We get it. We do. We get it. We understand. Seth doesn't like the double headers. He doesn't like the primetime games. Every football game should start at 1 p.m. Eastern. That's what he is saying. With even college football, every single college football game in the country should start kickoff at 1 p.m.
Except all LSU games should be at 7:30.
Oh, that's true. And if they were, then they would be undefeated. There's no doubt about it. Okay, so we got some mostly good, but also some not great quarterback performances that we need to talk about. You mentioned the first game, the game that was sort of over by the time the next game kicked off. The Buffalo Bills, massive win against the Jacksonville Jaguars this week. It was in Buffalo, so I think most people probably thought Buffalo was going to win the game, but not by the score that it was and not in the way that it was. So let's start off with the positive. We're going to talk about both of these quarterbacks, but let's start talking about Josh Allen, because this was a performance for the ages for Josh Allen. I mean, when you look at the stat sheet, it's not like it's the most passing yards ever. He threw for 263 yards. He was 23 for 30, threw for the 4 touchdowns. But basically everything that I just listed off happened in the first half because they were up by so much they didn't even need him in the second half. So he basically was just superhuman for 2 quarters of football, and they didn't really need to do much for the second half. But Seth, when you watch Josh Allen, I mean, is there anybody playing the position better than this dude right now? Because it feels like the answer is no.
No, there isn't. He is it's hard to put him above Mahomes because I think situationally it's a lot better in Buffalo right now than it is Kansas City. We talked about that last week, that the situation isn't very good in Kansas City. It's a lot better in Buffalo. So it's tough to just say oh, well, he's playing better, therefore he's better. I still think he is as good as Patrick Mahomes. I think he is tied at QB1, and I think that he probably deserved the MVP last year, to be honest. He should have been in the conversation. It ended up being that runaway Lamar Purdy narrative about halfway through the season, or maybe 3/4 through the season. Josh Allen was playing at such a high level last year that he should have been part of that conversation as well. This offense is really interesting because the Jaguars game is a little bit of an anomaly because the Jaguars play man coverage pretty much every snap of every football game so far this season.
Which is bold.
Ryan Nielsen, coming from under Dennis Allen, where the Saints play a ton of man coverage, so like kind of expected, but they played at a really, really high level. So you saw Joe Brady come out and just scheme it up. Oh, we're getting man coverage. Here's all my 12 favorite perfect man coverage plays. And Josh Allen was perfect on them, throwing the ball accurately, and they had no chance. I mean, the Jaguars had absolutely no chance. But in general, this offense, when they play a team that's going to mix up coverages, going to play more zone, in general, the offense is like not that complicated. They run maybe like 5 or 6 base concepts in the passing game. And they just do a lot. I mean, Dan Orlovsky was talking about this yesterday. I think he alluded to it, that they window dress a lot with formations and motions, but they're not really doing a lot kind of conceptually in terms of what the route combinations that they run. And I keep going back to this whole idea, like this, we have to ban safeties. The NFL should make it so that defenses can only play with 9 players on the field, like Mel Kiper was saying. But when you have a quarterback like this who can make all these correct decisions, who can throw the ball accurately anywhere on the field, so much of this offense is based on in-breaking routes. And well, if you're going to play too high, you're going to void a lot of spaces in the middle of the field, and they will hit you in those spaces. That whole offense is based on these type of routes and these type of route combinations. And Josh Allen, being that he's so good, can handle that, whereas a lot of other quarterbacks can't handle it. And we're seeing all this narrative about too high, we got to ban too high and all that stuff. So to me, he's playing at an elite level. Kind of should be so far the MVP of the league, and I'm excited to see what this offense can do going forward.
And I want to get into some of what you talked about there with like, okay, they're running sort of like the same formations, because I sort of want to get into sort of like what you've seen of like, okay, just digging into a little bit more of its sort of like simple stuff there and explaining that. But you and I were talking before the show, and when I'm watching Josh Allen last night, and I'm watching some more of his film this morning before we were popping on to talk about this. Who he is as a player, we talk about guys who change the math in the game of football, right? Because football is often just a math game. Okay, I've got 2 guys on 1 guy here, and you have the advantage there. Or, our 5 guys against your 5 guys, or whatever. And it's a math equation. So much of defensive and offensive chess matches is math equations and getting more numbers in a certain area to put your side of the ball in a more advantageous situation. Josh Allen's arm talent, not even arm talent, overall talent is a math buster. It destroys the math, because you get in these situations like last night where they might be playing like tight man coverage, but it doesn't matter because the dude can put the football in a football-sized window, like straight in man coverage. And you have these other opportunities where, I can't remember which touchdown this was. I can't remember who caught this one. He's a right-handed quarterback. He's rolling left and like contorts his body to then just throw it on a rope exactly where it needs to go. That shouldn't happen. Like, you're getting a right-handed quarterback to scramble to his left, and then you've got pretty good coverage throughout the field. Like, defense should have won that rep. And Josh Allen's just so good that there's nothing that you could do. There were so many plays last night against the Bills that you just go, what are they supposed to do? Or against the Jags, that you just go, what are they supposed to do here? You just have to hat tip Josh Allen. You're playing the best quarterback in the world right now, who has all the ability in the world, who's playing unbelievably confident, who is not putting the ball in harm's way. Because that was always the Josh Allen thing, right? The ceiling was always there, but the floor was also a little bit lower with him because of how much he maybe thought he could get away with and how much he would put the ball in harm's way, whether it was running, whether it was fumbling, whether it was throwing interceptions. And he's just not doing that this year. And instead, it's just the good. And when it's just the good with Josh Allen, they are capable of putting up 40-plus points against an aggressive defense like we saw the Jags deploy. So I do want you to kind of talk a little bit more about things being sort of simple for them, because no Stephon Diggs, no Gabe Davis, right? And that was a big talking point during the season. Josh Allen completed passes to 10 different receivers last night. So they're very clearly spreading the wealth around. Does that go into sort of what you were saying of, hey, they're sort of keeping their formations and their route concepts very simple. He just can go to a couple of different receivers to sort of make up for not having a Stephon Diggs or something like that. And sort of another question to build off of that is maybe not having a wide receiver one that you think you have to run the offense through actually the best version of Josh Allen that we're seeing because of what he can do with so many different types of receivers?
I think a lot of what they do in the passing game is it allows Josh Allen to scan from one side of the field, to start on one side of the field and scan all the way to the other side of the field. And so, you don't want to put every single quarterback in that type of offense because that's tough to do. Like the worse a quarterback is, the more you want to give him, okay, hey, if the will does this, so if the will linebacker moves this way, you throw it there. And if the will linebacker moves to the other way, you throw it to the other guy. Or if it's like, hey, if you're seeing it's cover two, we're going to throw to the left side because we have a cover two concept there. And if you're seeing that it's actually cover three, we're going to throw it to the other side because we have a cover three beater on the other side. With this offense, and there's obviously other offenses like this, but with this offense, it is more of that, hey, we're going to start on one side of the field. Now, every offense in the NFL runs a mix of both, but they skew more on this pure progression type thing. So we're going to start on this side. You're going to have your routes. You're going to be able to move your eyes back in, and there's going to be routes that come across the field as you're moving your eyes back in. And so you get into a situation where Josh is so good at making the right decisions. It's, like it's not just his incredible arm and the running and stuff. He's become this really incredible decision maker as well. So he's really good at making these decisions, saying like, hey, this guy's not open. Let me move my eyes back. And generally those routes that are like later in the progression, we talked about it last week, the Falcons, like those routes are generally going to be routes that get open late. Like they just kind of get open because they're feeling for a space in the zones, or they're running away from man coverage after 2.5 seconds, where you have the ability. Receiver generally is going to win later against man coverage than earlier against man coverage. So you have that ability, and it paired with Josh Allen's brain, where he's just so good at not forcing anything. That's why this team is so tremendously good right now without a number one receiver. And I think in this type of offense, like I'm not ready to say like, hey, don't like the new meta for the NFL is don't have a number one wide receiver. But I think especially given that Stephon Diggs was not the kind of prime Stephon Diggs anymore last year, then I will say this works a lot better. I'm not like, I don't think when they had prime Diggs, like I think they were okay, but like, if they're not getting prime Diggs and you get some younger guys out there, then I think it makes a lot of sense. And just to echo your point about like the math buster stuff, is like you see it all the time in basketball. They talk about it all the time in basketball. Basketball is the best example of this because it's a slower half court type of slower tempo sport. But like everyone always says like, hey, like the best players get doubled, and what do they do with what can they do when they get doubled, right? Mm-hmm. How can they break the math after they get doubled? And Josh Allen is like that. And the arm strength on the Keon Coleman touchdown, again, it's a good man beater. He gets an inch of separation. So all you have to do is put the ball out there. But there's a guy in his face. Like there's a guy like less than a foot, it feels like, away from Josh Allen when he throws that over route to Keon Coleman, and it's in stride, no problem, touchdown. Like we just don't see this very often.
Yeah.
And it's exciting. It's honestly just really exciting to watch week in, week out, because you don't know who's getting the ball. Joe Brady has been amazing this season. Probably didn't get his due in Carolina, and obviously fired probably before his time, let's say, in Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
He's been really good at just game planning. Like, again, they don't have a lot of concepts, but they can come in each week with some new shit to do that is based on what the defense does. And it works. The whole first drive is just game plan shit, man. Like, it's crazy. The whole first drive is just them saying, oh, you want to play man coverage? Here's a motion, and then we bring the motion back. Here's a running back coming out of the backfield that you don't see. Here's this. Like, it's all that stuff, and it's really fun to watch, and it's a great pairing of quarterback to offensive coordinator with some nice skill position players and an O-line that's gotten better throughout his tenure there.
Obviously, like you said at the very beginning, you got to give Mahomes his respect for winning Super Bowls and awards and just all the postseason success and the close game success and everything like that. But in terms of guys who you are afraid they're going to beat you until they are literally on the ground and the refs are blowing the whistle. That's it. Like, you could have a free rusher screaming straight at him, and I would still be like, doesn't matter, play's still live. Josh Allen's going to make something happen. And I feel that way about Mahomes, right? You and I were chatting a little bit about the escapability before we hit record, and Mahomes is one of the best in the world. You mentioned this at, like, escaping the pocket, and there's pressure in his face, but, you know, he still has to sort of evade that tackle, and then, like, once he does, then he's able to make a clean throw, and he's, like you said, like, the best in the world at doing that. But Josh doesn't even have to evade the tackle. Like, Josh can get hit, and he's just still rock it exactly where it needs to go. When I was watching more of this game, when I was going back and watching the film, the thing that impressed me so much about Allen is how dangerous he is in the pocket, specifically because he does things that a lot of other quarterbacks do, but they can't get away with. Like, I think about when I'm scouting quarterbacks, and if you have a quarterback, Bo Nix was a little bit like this, for an example. Bo Nix would drift a little bit further back in the pocket than what you would want, right? He'd be in the shotgun and he'd have like a 3-step drop, but then after the 3-step drop, he would continue to sort of like drop as pressure would come at him, like as the offensive line was trying to stop the defensive line. And instead of maybe stepping up as much as he could, he would just kind of retreat, which is what a lot of quarterbacks want to do, right? It's sort of like that video game style where you hike the ball in shotgun and then you just back up. And then if it's not there, you're going to scramble to the sideline. You do all these crazy things. It works in video games. It doesn't really work in the pros. So like when I watched Bo Nix do that, I saw a lot of bad tendencies from him because then he would be multiple steps past where the line of scrimmage is because he's already in shotgun. He's already taking a 3-step drop, and then he's dropping back even further, and then he'd try to like throw off the back foot, and you're doing all that. Now the ball's got to sail like 25 yards just to get to where the first down marker is, and you don't really have the arm strength and the zip to be able to do that. I can't remember exactly what throw it was last night, but there was a moment where Josh Allen was in shotgun. He was dropping 3 or 5 steps in his drop from shotgun. He continued to retreat, and he cannons it like over the middle to somebody. I don't think it was the Keon Coleman throw, but it was to somebody. And I go, nobody else can do that. Like, that's the kind of stuff that, like, him, like, you throw Anthony Richardson in there as well, but Anthony's nowhere near as consistent as Josh Allen is. But there are so very few quarterbacks that are actually able to complete throws in which they put themselves 10, 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage voluntarily. And he does, but a lot of quarterbacks try to do it because they don't want to step up in the pocket. So the only other place to go is further back. So a lot of quarterbacks try to do that. Josh is just one of the very few quarterbacks who can actually make positive plays out of that. And that was something that I remember watching last night is like, if I was watching a prospect do this, more often than not, I'm writing that this is a negative, that they have to get better, that they have to stop doing this. And he does. And it works.
We did when he was at Wyoming. We said, this is a negative. This is not good.
Right. And that's very true. That's very true. And too often he would do that. And then it would be very obvious that he couldn't do it because he'd throw it into traffic. It'd be a turnover-worthy play. Because you got to remember, right? The further you drop back and the further you have to throw the ball, the better anticipation and ball placement you have to have because the ball flight path is longer. Therefore, that gives the defender an opportunity to see it, recognize it, and break on the ball. And Allen is a cheat code, man. He's turning negatives into a positive just from talent level alone, which is incredible.
not to make this about Anthony Richardson, but it's why I'm not ready to kind of give up on Anthony Richardson yet, because, and it's been bad. Like, I'm not trying to say it's been good or anything,
Right.
like this play so far, but it's like, well, give him a year, let him get his feet wet with playing in in the NFL. He only had like what 3 starts last year, 2 starts. I don't even remember.
It was like 3.5. I think he got hurt in the 4th game, if I remember
Right.
correctly.
So like, yeah, it's bad. Like, I'm not trying to tell you it's actually good. Like, it's bad, but it was also bad for Josh Allen, and you have similar type of arm strength and creativity with their legs. So, and good movement in the pocket. Anyways, not about Anthony Richardson. We will most likely talk about Anthony Richardson at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, Josh Allen, really good. We solved Josh. We solved it. We did it.
There you go. We did what no one else is brave enough to do, and that's to say that Josh Allen is good. We got to talk about the quarterback on the other side of things, but before we get to that, TDs, touchdowns, take it to the house, in for 6, whatever you want to call a touchdown. One thing's for sure, that touchdowns matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Whether it's on the ground, in the air, special teams, defense, we don't care how they score them. We just want to bet on touchdowns. DraftKings Sportsbook, #1 place to bet on touchdowns. If you guys are ready to place your first bet, try something simple, like the next player who's going to catch a touchdown pass from Josh Allen, because it feels like there's going to be a lot of them throughout this season. You can go to DraftKings Sportsbook right now, download the app, and make your bet today. New DraftKings customers can bet just $5 and get 200 in bonus bets instantly. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet on touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the promo code PFF. That's promo code PFF. For new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. If you got a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY, or you can just text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problems with gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gambling resources, visit dkng.co/FTBALL. From one quarterback to the other, very far ends of the quarterback spectrum and how they played, we do have to talk about Trevor Lawrence now. Trevor Lawrence in this game, 21 of 38, 178 yards, passing yards that is, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, only had 3 yards rushing on 2 attempts as well. It was a tough night for Lawrence, and to be frank, it was a tough night for every Jacksonville Jaguar, and it hasn't been a great season for them now, sitting here at 0-3. What are your thoughts on Lawrence? I would love to hear your thoughts about last night, obviously, but also just we now have to talk about the Jags and Trevor Lawrence in a bigger conversation, because after an 0-3 start, it sure feels like the people in the building aren't going to be in the building that much longer. So we sort of need to talk about what Trevor Lawrence is as a building block now as well. So what do you think?
I'm biased. I think he's really good. I'm not ready to get off that bandwagon until I see him in a different offense, because this is an offense that, we just talked about it. Joe Brady, first drive of the game. Hey, I know what defense you're playing, so I'm going to call these plays that beat your defense. And then you go and you watch the other side of the ball, and you see whoever's calling the plays in Jacksonville for the Jaguars just like kind of do the opposite. Oh, here's all my cover 1 beaters that I'm going to throw at you, and you're never playing cover 1. You're in cover 2 the whole time. And it's like, well, how are we supposed to get open? Like, I'm not saying Trevor Lawrence is entirely faultless here. I think his accuracy has been a little weird. I think some decision making, but at the end of the day, like, there are not a lot of people open in this offense. I'm gonna keep going back to that, because when I watch it, I'm like, what's going on here? Like, everyone is just covered very tightly all the time.
Yeah, and it feels like it is tight throws every single week that I watch this team. Yes.
And I'm like, okay, but wait, you had Calvin Ridley, you have Christian Kirk, now you have Brian Thompson Jr. Like, these are guys who can separate. So explain to me how we can take guys who can separate and not allow them to separate anymore. That's got to be on coaching. Like, so I'm like, I'm gonna be the Lawrence defender for the rest of my life, because I just don't think this situation is very good. The offensive line is bad. Anton Harrison, we thought maybe could take a step in the right direction, has taken a step back. He's been bad. and then you saw Walker Little comes in, and that's not good either. And like, it's really bad. The offensive line in general, in terms of communication, has been really bad. Like, we talked about this last year. Buffalo, who was their center? Mitch Morse. What happened? They have mad communication issues in terms of getting into the right protections. Where is Mitch Morse now? He's the starting center for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like, and he's like a good player in a sense, but like these things keep carrying over, and they want to blame. I don't know who they want to blame there. Like, but the protection issues are just god awful. So there's a lot of things wrong. Like, can a guy? I just like put Brock Purdy in this offense. Put Tua Tagovailoa in this offense. Two guys that were like, oh, these are MVP candidates. Put them in this offense. I dare you to see what happens. I dare you to see what happens when you put them in this offense. It is tremendously bad. You know, Doug Peterson, we talked about this before. Look at, like, I know you could probably do this about all the top coaches of all time, but like, let's go look at Doug Peterson's record without Carson Wentz. Not even like, oh, let's go look at Sean Payton's record without Drew Brees. Like, no, let's go look at Doug Peterson's record without Carson Wentz. It's way below 500. So like, I'm at the point now where I've just love to see him in a new offense.
Yeah.
And see if that really fixes things, because there's just not a lot of people open. Like I said, the accuracy, you're like, okay, Trevor, let's go here. Like, let's get some better throws in here for sure. Not saying that he's faultless, but at the end of the day, no one gets open in this offense. There's no coherency to this offense. There's false starts. I will say the run game, it's only been 3 games, and this may change, but the run game has been better this year than last year. The run game was basically the worst in the league last year, and that tanked them. Kind of no pun intended there last year, but it's been like, when I say it's been okay, I mean, it's like literally mid. It's mid.
As the kids would say.
That's better than last year, but like, it's still like not good enough. And whatever, man. Like, people are going to be mad at me. Like, I don't care. Trevor Lawrence is a really good quarterback, and he's playing in a really bad situation, and that's it.
You know, I am excited to see him in sort of a different situation, and I think that we are going to get a different situation in Jacksonville, because clearly it's not working. And them being 0-3, I think they're too far behind the 8 ball now. I don't think that this is going to be a playoff team at this point, and them having another disappointing year, especially because you were on the clock before because you were trying to maximize a franchise caliber type of quarterback in a rookie window. Now you're on the clock even more because you're paying him. So, like, you are paying this dude, and if you don't think that you have the right setup and guys making decisions around him in the front office and in the coaching staff, you got to make a change. I felt bad for Lawrence because, you know, the Urban Meyer year was a disaster. You know, it was absolutely terrible. There were no building blocks there, and I think it set the franchise back a little bit. But now I think enough time has passed where we go, okay, Doug Peterson does not feel like the answer either in Jacksonville. And Lawrence, to your point, has not been perfect, but I don't think perfect should be the bar, right? If perfect's the bar, then it's unrealistic, and I think that you have to look at things differently anyways. So Lawrence has done some good things, right? There have been streaks within the last couple of years where the Jags have played well, but there are also certainly, I mean, you talk about the turnovers, the fumbles lost, the interceptions. Like, he's got to take care of the ball much, much better. You know, that was a Josh Allen thing that we talked about. He got much better as he got into his 4th and 5th years in the league. You know, you hope that that's coming with Trevor Lawrence as well, and Allen's sort of a case that it is possible. So he definitely has to, first and foremost, take care of the ball better. But you're right. I mean, you just watch this offense over the last couple of weeks. Everything is very difficult. Sure, the offensive line's a little up and down. I feel like it's been up and down for the last 3 or 4 years. Jacksonville just has not really been able to put together a offensive line that you feel genuinely confident about. And there was a rep last night. I saw this when I was watching the film where Lawrence, he hikes the ball, and it's not like a clean pocket, but there would have been an opportunity for him to sort of, you know, step up around what would have been the pressure to his right in front of him. And he just immediately just tucks the ball, and he's like, I got to get the hell out of here. And it's like, man, he ends up, it's funny because, I mean, not funny if you're a Jags fan, I'm sorry, but It's funny because he tucks the ball to run, but then he realizes that the pocket is actually still there. So he kind of like looks up, but he's still like holding the ball high and tight, and he doesn't really know what to do. And it's just a mess, man. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of confidence, and that's very different than the quarterback that we're about to talk about to sort of wrap up the show when it comes to one guy playing with a ton of confidence and the other guy not. Lawrence it feels like he doesn't have confidence. The offense does not look easy. The offensive line's not what it should be. The wide receivers cannot get open. Lawrence isn't great himself, but there was a third down play. I think it was one of the third and 9 plays that they had where they got 2 receivers to the right side, and Lawrence is very clearly looking to the right side of the line of scrimmage. They're running the same route, like 3 feet away from one another. They're both bringing both defenders like right next to these players to make a play on the ball. It's like, what route design is this? And I got to think that somebody ran the wrong route. There's no way this is the design to the play, but how do we even get into this point where the spacing is that bad as well? So I'm going to be honest. I think I don't know how many people that are currently in the building as decision makers in the coaching staff or the front office or players on this depth chart are on this team to start the 2026 season, I will say. I do not know how many players, and obviously there are some. I'm not trying to say that the whole roster is trash. There are some that will obviously still be there. But I think Jacksonville is about to make some wholesale changes in this organization, from the front office to the coaching staff to the entire depth chart. And we'll see what changes they're able to make. But any other Lawrence points before we move on to our last quarterback?
No, just like us, Herbert and Lawrence defenders will be vindicated. We will be vindicated. Mark my words.
That's like a Lord of the Rings line right there. It's just like we will ride again, brothers. There's one other quarterback that we got to get to. It was well, I was going to say the most exciting quarterback of the night. I can say that. Josh Allen, like you said, 1 half. We were already tuning it out. We got a full game of this guy. It's Jayden Daniels. But before we get to that, NFL season, it is fully underway. And this season, we're listening to a new podcast called The Offensive Line with Annie Agar. Annie is an NFL insider. You might know her from her uncomfortable team meetings on social series that you've probably seen everywhere. Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, everything. I mean, they're all over the place. The Offensive Line is a podcast where Annie kicks it back with NFL stars, celeb superfans throughout the season to unpack the week's lines, odds, spreads with her usual brand of sharp wit and banter as well. So it's a lot of fun. It's a good listen. The pod's packed with humor. It's a must listen every single week to keep up with the latest NFL news and culture. You can follow the Offensive Line podcast on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcast, and you can access bonus episodes. Also listen ad-free to The Offensive Line right now by joining the Wondery Plus app. So make sure you guys check out that podcast as well. Last guy, save the LSU quarterback for last, so you could just gush about what a great QB factory LSU
Which LSU Heisman Trophy quarterback are we talking about? Which one?
I did not make the connection that it was LSU versus LSU and Joe Burrow versus Jayden Daniels. We're talking about Jayden Daniels. It's a positive show. We're not going to get on Joe Burrow quite yet, but we are going to talk about Jayden Daniels. An unbelievable performance for anyone's standards, let alone a rookie. They go into Cincinnati and get a huge win there. This offense is humming, man. I mean, they are scoring. Their score percentage is unbelievable. And I get why Cliff Kingsbury has, been the subject of criticism, certainly with his time with the Arizona Cardinals. And I understand sort of the hesitation with him and, really believing in him this season with Washington as the offensive coordinator there. They're scoring the football, man. I mean, this team knows how to put points up on the board. And last night was another example. Jayden, 21 for 23, highest completion percentage ever for a single game for a rookie, 254 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 39 rushing yards as well. He was masterful in this game. So, Seth, as somebody who watched a lot of LSU football, watched a lot of Jayden Daniels over the last 2 years, what did you think about sort of what you thought about Jayden Daniels coming out and then what he already is in these first 3 games, especially what we saw last night against Cincinnati?
I think the main thing at LSU, the thing that made me, let's just say like in general for his scouting report is always going to be the same thing that I have for quarterbacks, which is like 5th-year guy. Like, are you good because you're playing against guys that are like 3 to 4 to 5 years younger than you. Like that's a big deal at that age. Less of a big deal when you get to the professional level, but a big deal at that age. And are you good because you have 2 top picks at receiver and 2 future top picks at tackle? And I think those concerns are still important. But what we've seen, a big step, we're hoping it's a big step from the first 2 games. Again, they've scored points. A lot of it, they were down in the fourth quarter, second half against Tampa Bay. That kind of skews the numbers a bit. But I think what we've seen, and Troy Aikman talked about this a lot, and I echo Troy Aikman's thoughts on Jayden Daniels, where, hey, the first 2 games, like there was a lot of open targets down the field. Like Cliff Kingsbury's actually done a really good job so far. It's a very interesting and probably more diverse offense than we've seen out of Cliff. At least the early Cardinals years. I think by the time like 2022, even though he gets fired, like I think they were a little closer to this. But the point is, like, it's more formationally diverse, it's more pass concept diverse, run game diverse. So like that's good. But Jayden was still missing a lot of throws in terms of like, hey, I'm not seeing this open receiver down the field when I should be seeing it. And then he takes off and he scrambles, and he's really good at that. I don't know if you know this, but he's really fast. He's like really, really fast. And something that I've caught myself over the last few years doing early on, and when I would look at quarterbacks in college, I'd be like, oh, yeah, you can move around against Big 12 defenses. Oh, you can move around against blah, blah, blah defenses as a quarterback. You won't do it in the NFL. And it's like, no, some of these guys are like, if like Allen and Mahomes and all these guys, like, and Jayden Daniels is another guy, like, he is fast. Like, he's not going to have a lot of like 50-yard touchdown runs on scrambles like he did against last year. There was a one against the Florida Gators.
And
yeah.
And so, wait, I actually didn't know where you were going at first, and then when you paused, I was like, it was against Florida, wasn't it? And then it was against Florida. So
like you always have that. There's been a lot of like positive plays on scrambles, and so you're like, okay, there's you can work with that. You're gonna get great run game out of him with all the zone read stuff, all the quarterback run stuff. Like, it's gonna be great. We've seen it for 3 weeks, but he's got to find these open receivers. Like, he has to see them, and last night he saw them.
Yeah.
And if that's who we're getting out of Jayden Daniels, like, forget it, man. Now the caveat is Bengals, Giants, and Bucks might all finish in the bottom half defense, especially the Bengals. Like, don't even get me started on this Bengals team. But so, and they play Arizona next week, and there it's another bad defense. But if he can make these plays consistently, where he's seeing it and throwing it, like, because he's pretty accurate. Like, he's been accurate the whole time. It's just like, are you seeing it, or are you Justin Fields? Now, Chicago Bears Justin Fields.
Right, of course. You
not MVP candidate.
Right.
Steelers, Justin Fields.
Yes.
Where it's like, hey, well, you're not seeing it. It's taken too long for you to make these decisions in the pocket, and then you're just scrambling. And like, yeah, you're adding value as a scrambler, but it's just not enough. But if he's gonna do it, man, if he's gonna make these plays in the pocket, throwing down the field, there's a lot to like. Because I think the offensive line, I thought they did a smart job on the offensive line. Like, they didn't go and get stars, but they got a bunch of average players, and sometimes that's good enough. Just to have a bunch of average players, Biotish and Allegretti, like they're average. Cosme is above average, but like that's probably good enough. And so I think that's really exciting. If he can do this, what we saw last night, the sky really is the limit. I mean, there's a reason he's a number 2 pick. Like I said, I think there's some caveats there with the quality of defense they faced, but wow, it was tremendous last night.
The thing that really stands out to me, two things about Jayden Daniels specifically. The confidence is the first one. I mean, you saw on the sideline when everybody's watching the game, like it's a 4th down. It's sort of that chance where, like, all right, like, I can understand, you're not going for it here, and they're able to get close to the line to gain on third down, and Jayden looks immediately to the sideline and he's like, "Let's go!" Like, do not put the punter, or I can't remember if they were in field goal range or whatever. But he was basically like, "Do not put the special teams on the field. Let's go!" And you literally see him saying that. He's like, "Let's go! Like, let's do this." And at that point, like, you know, I think Dan Quinn's a big-time players coach. I think that's why, you know, teams in Atlanta love playing for him. I think that's why the defenses in Dallas, like, loved playing for him, why he got the most out of these guys. He trusts these players, and it's your job as a head coach to sort of balance that, right? Protect the player from the player a little bit. Of course, every offensive player wants to go for it. But, like, when dudes are feeling it, and you're in that zone, and they say, "Let's go for it," like, let's do it. And he goes, "All right, let's do it." And they absolutely did, and they were able to convert there. How Jayden Daniels played on third down. It was just the confidence that this kid is playing with is incredible. You saw him after some of the big throws that he made, you know, down to McLaurin, not even a touchdown to McLaurin. The other big throw that he had to McLaurin, and the camera goes back to him, and he's just like, he is crazy celebrating. He is animated. He is into it. He is confident. And that's when you really know that you've got a quarterback who's got the ability to play at whatever their potential is when they're playing that confident. There was a time in the preseason that I was also a little bit skeptical about Jayden. I had him as my 20th, 21st overall prospect. So, like, I thought he was a first-round quarterback. And even I went back and I was reading my scouting report on him last night, and my little blurb on him is saying, like, hey, you know, at the end of the day, this is absolutely a first-round quarterback bet worth making. And against Miami in the preseason, he had 2 throws to the sideline, these comeback throws, where we just saw Will Levis get burned for that this week, where it is a sideline throw, and if you are late or inaccurate on it whatsoever, that can be a pick six. Worst play you could possibly have as a quarterback. Interception, not only that, but the other team scoring a touchdown there as well. And he's ripping these throws to the sideline in preseason. And I'm like, okay, this dude's got confidence already. We don't normally see that from rookie quarterbacks. And that only continued to blossom as the regular season came around. He was very confident against Tampa Bay, although Tampa Bay just it ended up being too much and they weren't able to win that game. And it was certainly present last night with the confidence he played with. So confidence is the biggest thing for Jayden Daniels. You would not be able to see him achieving his talent ceiling the way that he is as early as he is if he was not playing as confidently as he is. So that's a very, very important part that I wanted to mention. But also, you talked about the throwing on the run. Jayden Daniels has always been able to throw on the run. But something that was very intriguing to me last year is he didn't really do it, especially off of scrambles, right? Designed runs, rollouts, play action boots, like, okay, that's one thing. But scramble plays. So you talk about, all right, this is a guy who hikes the ball, is scanning the field, he gets pressure sooner than he thinks, okay, I got to break the pocket. Now I'm scrambling. Now I'm scrambling to the sideline. I'm extending the play. I'm keeping my eyes downfield. And last year, the entire season, the entire 2023 season, he threw on the run just 15 times. He was 7 for 15 with 2 big-time throws and 2 turnover-worthy plays when throwing on the run in a scramble situation, just a 60.8 passing grade. Last night, if you just go off of scramble plays, he was 3 for 3 with, I believe, a touchdown. And if you include some rollout stuff, so what he's able to do on the run, he was 6 for 6. So he is doing what people thought he was capable of, but really didn't show it at LSU last year, now at a more regular level, which I think unlocks everything that Jayden Daniels can be to the equation. Because that's what I heard in the pre-draft process, Seth, is a lot of people watched Jayden Daniels and they went, oh, he's athletic. He's great throwing on the run. And I heard so many people say, like, oh, he's great throwing on the run, he's great throwing on the run, he's great throwing on the run. And I'm like, you're not watching the film. You're just looking at how he is as an athlete and assuming that he is great on the run. He did not do that last year, but he's doing it now. And so now with this a part of his game plan, now you are talking about a quarterback that is such a difficult matchup for any defense because he's willing to not just be a runner in scramble situations, but also a passer. And very clearly, Cincinnati was not able to handle that last night.
Yeah, I think that's an important factor is like, you can't live in the NFL. Every time you move out of the pocket, you're gonna try and run. And that was the case, like you said, at LSU last year. Just not a lot of lowest percentage of throws off of scrambles in the entire FBS last year.
Right.
Lowest percentage of throws off scrambles in the NFL in the first 2 weeks. Like, there's big plays there. I get it because he is fast, man. Like, I always forget before I turn to watch Jayden Daniels. He is fast. Like, for what do you think he would have ran?
Something close to a 4.4. I don't know if he would have cracked 4.3 because 4.3 is insanely fast, but he would have absolutely been a 4.4 quarterback for sure.
So, but you saw it even in this Bengals game, like, like Logan Wilson and Pratt, those two linebackers who were like in zones underneath when he moves, like they're firing out and they're gonna go chase you down because they're NFL athletes. Now I'm not saying Logan Wilson is a better athlete than or faster than Jayden Daniels, but like it's a big difference when you go from college to NFL in that regard. So you have to make these plays, these throws when you get outside the pocket. And again, it's a small sample size because it's one game out of 3 where he did it. But if this is the Jayden Daniels if this is the Jayden Daniels that we're going to get going forward, well, rookie of the year. I mean, honestly, already rookie of the year is probably already wrapped up. That also has to do with how bad the defense is. They're going to get a lot of volume of plays. He's going to get a lot of like box score stats, but. Like if this is the Jayden Daniels, then we're good. Again, I think we have to pump the brakes just a little bit because the Bengals defense is bad. This is really bad. We're getting, you talked about a lot of people not being around in the Jaguars going forward. I think we might be in for it with the Bengals as well. So that, again, that's the caveat we have to make is like they haven't played great defenses yet.
Yeah.
And again, like I said, they're playing Arizona next week, which is going to be one of the most fun games of the season, probably. And Jayden's going to put up really good stats, and he's going to look good again, most likely.
Yeah. And
I will say, like, you talked about the confidence, and it seems like people want to play with him and play for him, just like his coach. Hey, it's good to get these quote unquote easy. I shouldn't say easy because it's the NFL, but like get these defenses under your belt early in the season and gain confidence where now you go play against an actually good defense and you're like, hey, well, I can make these throws. I just did it against an NFL team. So I think that's a good thing. I think like progression is not always linear.
Little Canadian right there trying to say linear.
I have to leave. I have to go.
The Canadian came out, but keep going. Yeah. Progression is not always
progression is not always linear. So like, I don't think there's a guarantee that he comes out. Even like I said, should be good next week, but there's no guarantee he comes out and he does the same stuff and he's 20 out of 23 again and looks really good. But I think the fact that we've seen this game now, where all the positive stuff we thought about Jayden Daniels did come true. It's good. That's the only thing. It's good. It's still a long way to go, but it's really good. It's really promising.
Last thing that I will add on this, 3rd and 4th down, he was also nails, an elite 90.5 PFF grade on 3rd and 4th down against the Cincinnati Bengals. And then you mentioned, man, it feels like Jayden Daniels should be the favorite to win Rookie of the Year right now. There's no doubt about it, especially after last night's performance. But he might be in a tight race with Malik Neighbors because that's about all the New York Giants have. And so, I mean, if he keeps pumping up those numbers like crazy and, yeah, another LSU guy. Wow. Surprise.
There are a lot of them, and they're all very good.
And they are all very good, Good football players in the SEC. I don't know if you guys knew this. Appreciate you guys watching and listening to the QB Showcase here. Myself and Seth are going to be back with you every single week around this time to break down the impactful quarterback play around the NFL. Thanks for watching the NFL Show. We'll see you guys next week.